last part of the course on economic decision making, namely different markets in any economy. Now we know that from weeks 1 to 4 that decision makers in an economy work on a daily basis, and it's expressed in millions of transactions. It can either be on a micro side, the demand and supply, or it can be in a macroeconomic measurements, the performance of any economic system. But we all know that on the production side, businesses organize themselves into markets, and you have to know different markets. We're going to have a look at, of course, fully competitive markets, where demand and supply determine price. We have millions of buyers, but you also have hundreds of producers. Let's take sugar. There are a lot of farmers in South Africa which will deliver sugar, and the price that they get is determined by demand and supply. They can't organize themselves in a cartel. They can't organize themselves in some other monopolistic market. They will get the price on the market. You get it on tomatoes, a lot of agricultural products. Right? You also get it by means of a lot of other homogenic products as well. Now that is the fully competitive market. Normally, I will show you that in a fully competitive market, all producers will only produce at that point where they make a maximum profit at that output where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. They don't make abnormal profit. They can freely enter, they can freely exit. So that is the so-called competitive market. Then we're going to say that a lot of producers say, no way, I want to make more profit. I want to make an abnormal profit. The reason why I can make an abnormal profit, I can produce a product, right, that no one else can produce, right, and I can produce solely that product. That's called a monopolist. Now the clearest example of a monopolist in South Africa is the De Beers Diamond Company in South Africa. You know that the De Beers Diamond Company in South Africa owns almost 97% of the world's diamond contracts. So they're basically the sole producer. Now, when you're a sole producer of a product, then you're a monopolist. Then we're going to show you how your demand and your supply curve looks, and it's different from a fully competitive market, and you can make abnormal profits. Now, normally, if you're a monopolist and you make abnormal profits, you sell less to the market than under perfect competitive circumstances. That's why for a monopolist, normally they know that they're a monopolist because their products are scarce. Like for instance diamonds. Of course, in a lot of instances, a monopolist became a monopolist because of patents. He got the only patent to produce a product. Right? We know years ago, if you look at swimming pool cleaners, it was only Creepy Crawly. Creepy Crawly had the patent to produce and sell that swimming pool cleaner. So for years they made abnormal profit, and that's why today if you talk about a swimming pool cleaner, you talk about a Creepy Crawly. But we know today there is competition because of the competition board in South Africa that told Creepy Crawly, no, you're making abnormal profits. So that's the monopolist. Then what about two other markets in between? In between is normally an oligopolist, where 3 or 4 or 5 guys decide we're going to produce a product and we're going to work together so that we also can make abnormal profit. Or we're going to use a certain quality of product which only we can produce. Cell phones. We know today it's basically Apple and Samsung. Right? Nokia is out of the market. There are a few other small ones, but it's Samsung and Apple. Right? And what do you see with Samsung and Apple? Every year they bring out a new model that must be different from the previous model or must be different from Samsung. So they compete on the product itself. It's called product differentiation. They're not so worried about price. They more compete to make sure that they have a better product than the other one, and then of course, because they do it, they push all other competitors out of the market, and those two are making abnormal profits. That's called oligopoly markets. And then we also have competitive monopolists, right? That is a lot of producers in the market, but they are not oligopolists, but they are also product differentiation, like the motor car industry. You get hundreds of models. Each model would like to be different from the other one, right? Either it have a turbo in it, it have a Bluetooth in it, etc., etc. So they also compete on the product itself, and it differentiates it from the other product. They can also make abnormal profit, but normally they are more than 10 producers. They got a lot of models and different products in the market. So in other words, in week 5, we'd like to end this course by looking at the different markets, so that when you go out there now after this course, you know about the demand and the supply of a product, the cost of the company, you know about the different markets. Then you are able to use economic data in South Africa to measure the performance of the South African economy. So if you're going to look over the radio or the television, you listen about South African inflation rate or South African unemployment data, you'll understand it. You will also be able to get the data from the sources, draw your own graphs, and do it in presentations. So that is the economic decision makers. So I hope that this course will be very practical and that you can use it as a manager. Thank you very much.